comes the bride, and she's gonna sell her soul to the trickster.
Oh, not again.
Not again. Do you know what? I was about to sing the naughty version that was funny when you were in school in like 2005, and I was like, that's
I know.
not very...
I was about to join in with it. I was like, I don't want to be the one saying it either.
Nope. Okay, no, we're leaving that
No.
in 2006. We're not doing that.
We'll leave that back where it was.
Exactly.
How are you?
I'm okay. I'm a little less hot today, which is nice.
Oh, thank God, me too.
Do you know what? I'm a little bit sniffly. That's the truth. If you hear a couple of little sniffs in the background, I'm feeling a bit coldy. I think it's because of the change in the weather, which I am grateful for Wholala recordings. Don't get me wrong.
Me
but,
too.
A little bit coldy. Not gonna lie.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thrive in autumn and spring. I love the cooler weather. So when autumn's come in and people are like, oh, summer's done. I'm like, summer's done. Yes. I made it. Oh, it's over.
I can't remember if you went to a church school or not. I'm assuming you did. Do you remember Autumn Days, the hymn Autumn Days?
No, I don't.
The one that like autumn days when the grass is due, and they like list all the things that happen in autumn.
That's familiar.
And they're like, smell of bacon as I fasten up my laces and the song, the blue. But anyone else go to a church school?
Chorus?
Oh, I mustn't forget.
Yes.
No, I mustn't forget to say a great big thank you. I mustn't forget. Because it was around harvest.
Yes, that sounds right. Harvest. That's a funny
This was my culture.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I remember it well. No, I love that. We had a nice night out the other night. We had some margs.
We did. We had some margs. We had a nice in-person, not podcast meet, which I was grateful for.
That was great.
Yeah, we went out. We hit the town. And by hit the town, I mean we were all in bed by about 10.
We were. Literally 9:15. We were like, should we carry on or no?
I'm very much the friend that keeps the good vibes going. And I was we can go back and play games. And you were like, yeah, we can. And we kind of looked to everyone else there, and everyone else was like, I'm a bit tired. And we were like,
I think it was my third or fourth night in a row drinking. And I was like, I might need to do the rest of the night on Sprite, if that's... And So anyway, that was nice. What else is happening? Yeah. I'm moving flat from undisclosed location A to undisclosed location B very soon. I've been looking at trying to find a dining table is an exciting thing happening in my life.
Is that the next thing on your list?
It's the next thing on my list. I had my mind blown. I know this is really, really boring. This is really boring and just not interesting. Another way of saying really boring.
Oh, go on. You're tantalizing me.
But I was just amazed to find what everyone else already knew, which is that you can get really old dining tables on auction sites, not just like eBay, but like auction houses. You can get really old tables, like quite cheap. And I was looking and there were hundreds of them, which were either not just like mid-century 1950s, but there were like 1800s tables, very affordable. Or there was one which was like...
built to last, baby. Built to last.
Built to last. I mean, it really puts IKEA stuff into perspective where I'm thinking, is this bookshelf that I've had for two and a half years going to survive the move 20 minutes down the road? I'm actually not sure. But there was one and it was like 17th century farmhouse table or something. And it was like £300. And I was like, what? And it wasn't one that I'd want. But I was just like fascinated by like how many generations this one table has passed through. Like the stories.
How many people have eaten at this table?
I went really down the rabbit hole on these auction sites and there's all sorts. There's weird war memorabilia that I don't think you should be allowed to sell some of it because there was Nazi stuff that I was like, now that shouldn't be in anyone's hands. And then there was something. I went under the taxidermy section out of a morbid interest and there were...
Oh, you didn't.
There were some horrible like badgers' heads on plaques and things. I was like, that's just not nice. And then there was a few listings. I'm not kidding when I say this. Human skulls. I feel like that shouldn't be something I can just pick up. Do you know what I mean? Like just be like, chucking a bit of a human skull.
Can you imagine just as like part of your decor in your flat, just like having someone who was born and lived a life and like ended that life and now they just sitting on your
and now they live in my flat.
Like, paint them pink if you want.
That's what I mean. Like you'd think there would be some decency law that says two gay guys can't just keep a skull in their flat, but it was like if you're willing to splash, the stuff you can get, like antique-wise, this may have opened a door for me in terms of antiques because I genuinely find this so fascinating. But there's weird stuff to be found.
Do you know what I love about, like, so I mean, obviously I have my very little niche interests and things that I find cool, and I love seeing the merch that was out for like films and stuff in the beginning of cinema. So I look at like the merch that was out when the original Snow White came out and things like that, and like what they could make. And it's so interesting to me to see like what kids would buy because, oh, that movie in the theater that, you know, I'm not going to watch on the TV because they don't exist yet. I want to buy this to remember that movie that I'm only going to probably ever see once. Like that, it's so cool to me. And also like what they were just physically able to do. Like plastics weren't invented in the way that they have them now, you know?
I love it. It's making me think in school I would have liked history a lot more if I'd sort of applied some interest there and listened. Yeah, listened.
That's step one.
I'll feed back if I have any more weird antique finds. But so far, yeah, badgers. There was a lot of medieval like stone carvings of like forest green man figures, and I thought I may accidentally bring spirits into my house if I combine.
No, you do have to be careful.
Well, I wouldn't mess with that stuff. I was thinking if I on this one site bought one of these Imperial Japanese war swords, a human skull, and a medieval stone carving, the various ghosts in my house would be actually fighting battles through the night while I sleep. The weird dreams I'd be having.
I remember once when I was maybe like 12, I found a ring, like out on a walk on the beach, and I found a ring. And I showed it to my parents, and we realised it was a replica of the ring from the Lord of the Rings, with the little like inscription on it. And the whole point of that is that like if you find this, you're kind of screwed and you're going to go crazy. And my parents were adamant. They were like, oh, this is bad vibes, this is bad juju. And then as a kid, I lost it. Like I quote unquote lost it. And I remember my parents being like, oh, we're so relieved that ring's not in the house anymore. And now as an adult, I'm like, what did you do with this ring?
They got rid of the ring for sure.
They were like,
ring.
Yeah, they got rid of the other ring.
The one ring. That's very funny that they took it so seriously.
It went to the ring farm in the sky.
That was one of the things that was on the website. There was like medieval rings, and there was this too, 17th century solid gold ring. And it wasn't thousands of pounds. It was in the hundreds. But I was like, what a flex. If someone's like, oh, where'd you get that? That's weird. I'm like, well, it's actually a medieval ring.
Do you know what? Adult money is a dangerous thing.
It is. It's terrible.
And like
for trinket,
it ranges from wanting to buy a medieval ring to just remembering that I can buy golden nuggets whenever I want. Yeah. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it starts with, can I get something more sustainable than IKEA? And it finishes with, I'm being haunted.
A skull on your mantelpiece.
Exactly. Yeah. I went through a phase a couple of years ago. I don't know if you remember this. And I don't know what caused it. I still don't know. But I used to wake up at exactly like 3:33. Sometimes
I vaguely remember.
Do you remember? I went through a phase and it was always between either 3:20 and 3:45. But there was a period where like every few nights I'd wake up at exactly that time, totally awake. And I knew because I had a sleep app at the time and it showed like the times I was awake in the night. And
were you living in your current flat?
Yeah, in same bed, same flat. And I looked it up and people were like, that is the witching time. That's the witching hour.
It's the witching hour.
They were like,
3:30, I think. Is
the veil is thin and like something like your body's waking you up because something's trying to possess you. Which I don't believe, but the Google search was like...
Why do I feel like you do believe it?
I don't. I really don't. Well, you and I being raised religious, the counter effect of being kind of warned off, kind of, you can't watch that show about witches, you can't read Harry Potter, is you inadvertently start to believe that these things do have a power on the darker side.
Yeah. I'll ask you this. If they knew the format of it and what it included, do you think your parents would have let you watch the Trickster trilogy?
Yeah, surely.
They're like, witches aren't allowed. And things that like lean into my religious beliefs aren't allowed. But this demon from the nethersphere who comes to trick you into an agreement into like selling your soul.
Yeah.
That's allowed?
No, you're right. I was, I guess, 13 by the time today's episode came out. It was late enough. But you're right, he was quite Grim Reaper-like, and there was another memory there. My dad, I used to love playing The Sims 1, and I tried to get everyone else to play it in the family, because I was like, it's great fun, it's so funny. And I had like a Sims maker where you could upload a picture of someone's face and it would like paste it onto the sim.
Ooh.
Anyway, so we made a whole family, and then he was playing the game, didn't really understand it, and a house fire starts from the microwave.
Oh my God, and the Grim Reaper turned up.
Everyone dies, and the Grim Reaper comes, and there was a full 48 hours where the game was removed while Mum and Dad considered whether I could continue playing this game that had just burnt down our whole family. And I had to beg for it back.
You're like, please. You're like, well, they wouldn't have died if it was under my watch.
It's not my fault. Dad did it.
Dad did it. It wasn't me. It wasn't me. Well, I'll tell you what is me, to make my segues, which you know I love. It was me that said we had to finish the Sarah Jane Trickster trilogy and do the Wedding of Sarah Jane today.
I'm glad you did. This follows on so nicely from last time.
It does. It feels like, I mean, obviously I'm glad they didn't do this because you need the time in between, but these really are sequel stories to each other. Which is nice because they very much slot into the season they're in. Like, this feels very Series 3. The last one felt very Series 2 and Series 1, the first one. But it really does slot into each other nicely. And there was a moment which we'll get to where you messaged me and you were like, we said this last week. And boy, were we wrong when we rewatched this.
Yeah, I'll get to it. But it contradicts something you said last week about the character of the Doctor.
Oh, so give us a little context for this episode.
Okay, context. This episode came out on the 29th of October 2009 during Series 3 of the Sarah Jane Adventures. This, contextually, in the Doctor's story, follows Turn Left and, what was the other one? The Stolen Earth?
Stolen Earth and Journey's End.
That's it. The end of Series 4, but is before the Waters of Mars in the David Tennant specials. In fact, this comes after the Planet of the Dead, doesn't it? The one they filmed in Dubai.
Yeah, he's just said goodbye to the Tritivals. He's just dropped Lady Christine D'Souza off on that bus and hopped over to Sarah Jane World for a bit.
Yeah, he's had a whole novel spin-off worth of stories, a whole big series adventure worth of stories. It's probably been about 100 years. And he's back.
And again, this episode is written by the same writer as the previous episode. It's directed by Joss Agnew, who has worked on Waterloo Road. He did 11 episodes of the Sarah Jane Adventures, and then went on to do Outlander, The Split, Poldark, Mr. Selfridge. And these two episodes had 1.59 million viewers and 1.47 million viewers for episode 2. And I got a little graph up that shows the viewership for the whole of this series. And by far, these two episodes were the most viewed of the whole series, which very much shows like the David Tennant draw. What I find quite funny is the next highest episode is the Mona Lisa's Revenge Part 1. And I think that might be because maybe Sir Alan Jones is in it and Mona Lisa's a very interesting character. But then Part 2 was like one of the least viewed episodes. So like they watched the first part and they were like, that wasn't very good.
That wasn't. I only have the memory of quite bad makeup for that episode. Remember Saran Jones like having no eyebrows or something?
Yeah, they really tried to make her look like the painting. I mean, that is very Mona Lisa. It's funny that she then went on to do The Doctor's Wife, but yeah, as an introduction to the Whoniverse, it was a bit rough. I was surprised how low Prisoner of the June was. Prisoner of the June had 0.7 and then 0.8 million overnight viewings. And
as a season opener, it's a bit watery, isn't it? Yeah.
I know, it's a season opener, and it also is just quite a good episode with returning monsters as well. So, I don't know.
But you're right, this series sort of averages somewhere around 800,000 viewers overnight.
Yeah.
And this kind of, with the final ratings, got double that. So a tenant quake, a tenant phenomenon.
A tenant phenomenon. Well, as we'll find out a little bit later in this episode, we did get international viewers for this. But for anyone who hasn't seen it, it's on iPlayer in the UK. Go have a look. It's a very, very good episode of TV. It's very, very good Sarah Jane. But for anyone who wants a little recap of the episodes, here you go.
And if you're not in the UK, yar har har.
Yo ho ho and a bottle of rum.
Yo ho ho ho. Where's my boozy? The story opens with Sarah Jane being followed by Luke and the gang after a series of mysterious outings with no real explanation. They soon find out it isn't aliens she's hunting, but love. She's been dating mystery man Peter Dalton, who soon formally meets Luke. Clyde and Rani can't stop themselves from having a peek at Peter, and Rani's mum Geeta even stops them to say she does excellent wedding flowers.
Sarah Jane's decided to hide the saving the world part of her life from Peter, which proves difficult when a slug-like alien called Travis Palong is let loose and K9 chases after it, barking, "Everything is normal!" After a few near misses, Peter is still none the wiser and proposes to Sarah Jane. She says yes and gladly puts on the engagement ring. Unknowing to her, however, it glows red. Peter is not all he seems.
Meanwhile, Clyde grows suspicious of Peter and convinces Rani to break into his house, which appears to be boarded up. Inside, they see it's all empty with stacks of letters piling up. They try to tell Sarah Jane, but she surprises them by announcing her engagement. When they push her about Peter, her ring glows and she blows off their comments. Mr. Smith warns her of unusual activity detected, but she shuts him down, wanting to focus on her wedding.
The big day arrives, and Sarah's friends and colleagues meet for her wedding. No one from Peter's family is present, however. He doesn't have anyone left. He says that he's the end of the line. Sarah Jane walks down the aisle and is asked if anyone objects to the marriage. At that moment, we hear the TARDIS materialise and the Doctor runs out, screaming, "Stop this wedding, now!" Suddenly, an angel appears, but it's really the Trickster in a white shawl. He takes Sarah Jane and Peter, and suddenly all the wedding guests disappear.
The Doctor, Rani, Luke, Clyde, and K9 soon realise they're stuck in a time loop, trapped in 1 second, with Sarah Jane trapped in another. The Trickster has set up an elaborate plot to capture Sarah Jane by offering Peter his life after falling down the stairs and dying from the accident. If Sarah agrees to marry him, his life will be spared and they can be married. The wedded bliss wouldn't last long, however, as Sarah Jane would forget about her life saving the world, leaving the Earth open and defenceless.
The TARDIS manages to break through the time distortion, but only long enough for the Doctor to get on board. Clyde is pulled into the box and zapped with Archon energy, radiating from the time vortex and passed on to him by the TARDIS. He realises that he can use this as a weapon against the Trickster, much to Rani's protests. He tells the Trickster that he wishes to join the Pantheon, but instead sneaks up and zaps him with the energy. They're both brought in front of Sarah Jane and Peter, and Clyde collapses.
The Doctor materialises the TARDIS in front of them, reminding Sarah Jane that she's fought the Trickster before and knows how he can be defeated, before materialising away. She tells Peter what will happen if the Trickster succeeds, and he withdraws his agreement, telling him Sarah Jane gave me strength. He throws away the ring, and time goes back on track. We're back at the aisle, but this time Peter is missing. Sarah Jane holds back tears, telling everyone that the wedding is cancelled.
Back in the attic, the group console her and wonder why the Doctor didn't come back. Suddenly, however, the TARDIS materialises in front of them and they get to explore the ship. The kids try to convince the Doctor to take them on a trip, but Sarah Jane reminds them that they're grounded by the Jadoon. They leave, and she asks the Doctor if she's ever going to see him again. He hopes so, and she leaves the TARDIS, saying, "Until the next time." The Doctor flies away, leaving Sarah Jane and her friends in the attic kneeling, ready to save the world.
Slay.
It's so, that ending, from when the kids leave the TARDIS, is where, this, I feel like, and I'll talk about it a bit later, I feel like this episode kind of walks a little bit too much on the line of it being kids' TV. Especially, I think, when the Doctor's in the episode, you're very aware this is kids' TV he's on. But that last scene, got punch.
Got punch.
Mm-hmm.
I so agree. I'll get into it. But first of all, should we hear what the listeners thought?
Yes, let's have a little listen to what the listeners thought.
Daft Apeth? I might be saying it wrong. This was such an event. Sarah Jane adventures for the kids, Nigel Havers for the grandmas, and bonus Doctor Who for everyone.
Hey.
The mind-controlling engagement ring is a bit dodgy in hindsight, but apart from that, it's a fun Trickster episode and all the cast get a moment to shine.
At Dennis Gill 10 says, "My favourite Sarah Jane Adventures story. The Doctor fits seamlessly without taking over the show and love his confrontation with the Trickster. The fact that Sarah Jane loses the love of her life because Peter sacrificed himself is really heartbreaking." Now, we would also normally read more tweets, but we've actually been sent a voice note from a listener.
Oh my God.
I'm so excited. This person does tweet us a lot, and we are very grateful for you listening to us, and we're very excited to play this voice note for you on the pod. So this is from Gordon Stanfield, and this is what he had to say about the wedding of Sarah Jane Smith.
Hello, Alasdair and Sam, and hello to all of the Wholala listeners. It is such an honor to be on the pod. Wedding of Sarah Jane Smith is my favorite Whoniverse episode for a lot of reasons. One of them is that in this episode we get the white angel costume for the Trickster, which is way, way better than the black costume, and if and when Russell brings him back for season 2 or season 3 of Doctor Who, he should have the white costume. It'll be a lot cooler. The Trickster has some great quotes in this episode. My favorite one is, "I could feel this moment reverberating back through the ages, the meeting of the Pantheon of Discord and the last of the Time Lords." It's so cool. The Doctor and the Trickster almost defer to each other. They have this kind of reverence for one another, even though they both want the other gone. It's kind of interested to see that dynamic between the two of them. Another great quote is when the Trickster is talking about the Doctor being lonely, and he says that the gate is waiting for you. And this came out like 3 months before the end of time did, so we had no idea what he meant. We were just as in the dark about it as the Doctor was, and that was a really good bit of storytelling. I love that we have a trilogy of Trickster episodes. In the first one, he just wants to create chaos. And in the second one, he has a vendetta against Sarah Jane. But in the third one, it's almost like he's trying to get at the Doctor. And a big theme in the Trickster trilogy is that he assumes incorrectly that people are not strong enough to oppose his will. In Whatever Happened to Sarah Jane, he assumes that Andrea would rather live than save the Earth. In The Temptation of Sarah Jane Smith, he incorrectly assumes that Sarah Jane will not be strong enough to let her parents abandon her. And in this one, The Wedding of Sarah Jane Smith, he assumes that Peter is not strong enough to choose his own death over the safety of the rest of the world. And my final note is that when Clyde defeated the Trickster with the Archon energy, that was a mother attack. That was the original mother attack. We just didn't know it. Okay, that's all I have to say. Thank you guys. I love your pod. Bye-bye.
Mwah. Oh my God, there's actually no need for the episode. That was such a good summary. I'm dead serious.
Literally.
That I think we can just hang up the mics today. That's enough. I loved that. I'm really glad. We need to do more dial-ins. Beep, boop, beep, boop.
I know. I want all of you to send in voice notes. That was your thoughts were so concise and well thought. And I genuinely, like Alice said, I don't feel like we need to do the podcast anymore because I feel like you're going to take over the platform from us. I loved the quote that you chose about the moment reverberating throughout the ages. And when you were saying about the reverence that they have for each other, because I do feel like there's almost a bit of like a Batman and Joker-esque respect for each other, where like you can't really have one without the other, and they both, much as they are enemies, they have like a real respect for each other, and I really, really like that, and that was very well spotted of you.
I love it. It's really good. I love the acknowledgement as well of the white fit. I think the white cloak is so genuinely deeply funny to me. It's just like, as well, because the Trickster not only turns up with a rebrand of like, no, I'm an angel now, I'm an angel, and wearing all white because it's become so obviously suspicious to turn up in all black that he's like, right, let me rethink that. But then also does a new voice to go with it. And he's like, Sarah Jane. He takes on this like, it's me, your friend, the Trickster. I want the best
It's
for
like,
you, Sarah
I only
Jane.
want you to be happy. And she's like, oh,
so
right.
Okay, right. I just think that's hilarious. The rebrand.
It's so funny.
So funny, but it looks great as well. In fact, this probably needs to be a build on your proposed drag act, Sam. There probably has to be some transition from the black into the white at some point.
And then maybe underneath a white, it's like sparkly red.
Or start white and then reveal black. So you could do, as I say, Angel of My Dreams, Don't Call Me Angel.
Oh, that's really funny. Yeah, and then it could go back to black. I think you could then cut from back to black.
Back to black. Excellent.
Back to black would be really funny. And then I just love the idea of like the exact Trickster's outfit and his exact makeup, but it's all like ruby slipper, sparkly red.
Please, just like a final reveal at the end. There's another level to it. Please,
let loose. Yeah.
I love it. I love it.
Well, thank you so much, Gordon, for sending in that voice note. And as we said, we would love to hear more of your stories. You can either send us a voice note with your thoughts on the episode, or your Doctor Who fan anecdotes, your stories, tales of the TARDIS. You can email them to us. It's hurtlepod@gmail.com. You can be anonymous or not. Please let us know.
Yes, you can send your birthday cards in, and we can't always send them back to you, but we show as many as we can on the show.
Oh, yeah, you can send to our PO Box 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10.
Yeah. Adrian is 9 today. It says, lots of love, Adrian, from your mum, your dad, and your little sister, Judy.
And Maisie is turning 2. They say, happy birthday, Maisie. Hope you have a lovely day. Can't wait to see you at preschool later.
Not our audience.
God, I just had like a real flashback of watching CBeebies when I was ill. That was what that really gave.
Do you remember there was that bit in the song as well? It was like, are you 1?
Are you 2? Are you 3? Are you 4? Are you 5, 6, 7? Or maybe more?
And then maybe more. At one point, it came with like some guy's card coming through the letterbox and it said like 40 on it. And it made me laugh every time.
Yeah. I have had this thing. Sorry, this is so off topic.
Yeah.
I'm so curious to the science behind music where you can hear a song. I've not heard that song in many a year.
Yeah.
And you immediately remember all the words. Like, I will not remember what I have for breakfast. And like, you see those people who visit like Alzheimer's patients and they sing them a song they know and they know every single word.
Yeah.
And I want to know what it is about music that just locks memory in. We were just singing
It's
that
great,
hymn at the
isn't it?
beginning of the episode.
It's so interesting. No, it's
So
true. I remember we
interesting.
had a biology teacher once who was desperate to capitalize on this and was like, why don't we all try writing a rap about what was it? It was about chlorophyll or something. And we did the task. Do I remember any of it? No, I do not. It has to be a hit.
I have a memory of I was in history class in year 9 and they wanted us to rewrite We Didn't Start the Fire. But you know the bit with the like Doris Day, da, 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 da.
Right. Yeah.
But like all of those are events that had happened since We Didn't Start the Fire came out. And I'm not
Right.
going to say it now, but there was a rhyme that we wrote between someone being shot dead and Obama as president. And we had those as lyrics in our song, and I've just remembered that now, talking about this. Oh my God.
It can't have been a sensitive set of lyrics you would have got back, would it?
No, it certainly
But
wasn't.
I've known that. It's a safe space
Do
for
you know what?
exploration and creativity.
It probably came out not that long before this episode of the Sarah Jane Adventures.
Probably didn't. So that's what we were up to around that time.
So that's what we were doing around then. But
Singing.
talking about the Sarah Jane Adventures, I just bloody love the Trickster trilogy. I really love the Trickster. But I'm going to start on like it's not a low, it's just a thought that I had in this episode.
Okay.
I love the Trickster. I really do want him to come back. But in this episode, I feel like you could feel the limits of him being on a kid's TV.
Right.
Where in the trilogy, you know, they lean into like the choice between a child choosing whether they're going to live or die, an adult having to decide whether or not to let their parents die in the past and things like that. Whereas I feel like I just would love to see an opportunity where the Trickster is faced with not necessarily adult TV. I don't need it on like a Torchwood or something, but just on Doctor Who where you can really push kind of the horror element, because in this, like you're saying, the whole like, I only want you to be happy. So, and then like you get the return of the Trickster's like, oh, when he's zapped by the kid. I think for me, the scene that really gets it is when Clyde, this like 13, 14-year-old's like, I wish to join your pantheon. And he's like, you are nothing. And I'm like, what? Why are you listening to this teenager? Why are you giving him the time of day?
Yeah.
And like, that's where you feel the limits of it for me.
I do know what you mean. The Trickster, what I thought was actually really funny, especially in that scene you just mentioned, the Trickster keeps getting summoned like an Alexa, and they keep being like, Trickster! And he was like, oh, yes. Especially when Clyde does it, and he's like, you are not important. And he's like, no, I am. And he like has to like hear out the end of this speech.
Yeah.
You're right.
I've never thought about it like that, but that's so funny.
He true just pops at everyone's like, Trickster! And he's like, yes. He keeps having to pop up.
But I don't think he did that in the other episodes. He didn't.
No,
really,
I think
it's
it's
just
just-
that this episode.
While he's got the trap set up, it's as if within the confines of that, he has to attend like while the trap is playing itself
When
out.
he's
So
summoned,
while
yeah.
he's waiting for the final agreement, he's just like, yes.
What now?
Right, I've got a question for you. He's like, okay, yeah, okay. What's next? So, yeah, fine.
And then the doctor calls me. He's like, Doctor! It sounds very Brian Blessed almost.
Yeah, it's good. It's a really good performance. I thought the Trickster's performance in this, I didn't feel it was too leveled at kids watching it. I felt like it was a very, very sad story. If anything, you know, they probably went as far as they could do on kids' TV.
Yeah.
There's another sadness to it beyond kind of the fact that Sarah Jane has a genuine love with this man, because they both fall in love kind of outside of the influence of the ring and the hypnotism. They're actually in love with each other. And
Yeah.
the man, Richard, who she falls in love with. Is he Richard?
Peter.
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 Sure. He looks like a Richard.
Peter Dawson.
Is he played by a Richard? I don't know. They are genuinely in love. It makes it all the sadder, and he believes that, you know, they've been put together.
He's
because
played
they're
by
a
someone
perfect
called
match.
Nigel.
Right. Where did they get Richard from? He does look like a Richard, doesn't he?
He does. Do you know what? It's giving like a young Richard and Judy Richard.
Sure. Yes. Yes. The underlying sadness as well is that Sarah Jane is almost boxed into her life of adventure now. Like, that is almost her fate. She's had so much fun with her world of adventure that now she's almost critical to continue to defend the Earth, and she can't really escape it. So if Sarah Jane ever does kind of put down tools and try and have a normal life, the Earth becomes vulnerable to the point of destruction. And even the Doctor pushes her to continue that life. So there's a sadness as well in that, I think, in that her wanting just to kind of almost shut up shop, shut down, the supercomputer in the ceiling and lock the door and turn it into a little home office is just not something she can ever do.
That's really true. I never really think about it like that, where she says to Luke at the beginning of the first episode, like, oh, there were men that tried before, but how could I ever have a normal life? And you'd like to think that the moral of this story is you can have whatever life you want.
Yeah.
But the moral kind of is like, no, you can't. You have to keep doing this because people need you more than you are allowed to want a normal life. And like you said, even the Doctor, because the thing we were sort of alluding to earlier in the episode is that we were saying in the last episode when we looked at the temptation of Sarah Jane Smith that the Doctor never puts someone's life on the line. He never says that. That's never an option. And in this, he kind of says to Sarah Jane, you know what to do. And then looks at Peter like, bombastic say-no. Like, he's just staring at Peter like, you're not meant to be here.
He turns up and, so last week we said, or you said something wonderful that I was like, yes, Sam, you're so right. He was like, even when the solution is someone's death in the group, the Doctor won't even present it as an option until it's too late. And in this story, he turns up and goes, Sarah, I don't have very long. Oh my God, Sarah, you know how we operate, Sarah. You know how to defeat him. And then just gives a piercing glare at this guy to say, he needs to kill himself, Sarah, you need to send him back down the stairs. Goodbye.
You've got to let him die, Sarah. You've got to let him die.
What I like as well is every time the Doctor exits scene in this and he goes, whoa, back into the TARDIS, he makes the effort to slam the door behind him, but it's very obvious. He goes, whoa, and locks the door. So I like to believe that the TARDIS was functioning completely normally in this story, but just to go, oh, Sarah, he'll have to kill himself, goodbye. Just to kind of avoid the ramifications of that.
He was the one that set the TARDIS. He set the TARDIS to dematerialize, and he was just there like, oh, good situation, like,
Sarah,
gonna go, bye.
Sarah, he has to die, goodbye.
Oh my God, it's so funny. Do you know who I think is a useless character in this episode?
Please.
Luke. I think Luke is such a useless character in this episode.
No.
Love him. And also, this was the era where I was, how would I have been this? 2009. I would have been about 12 going 13. So I was just about to, prepubescent. And this is when I started finding Tommy Knight so fit. Like, this was when my crush for Luke, really started setting in. And I loved him and he could do no wrong in my eyes. But now looking back on it, Luke just falls for everything, which I get you would. Your mum, especially wants to be considered normal. He's trying to be accepting his dad. But especially in the second act, I don't know if he had limited availability or what, but he's actually not in the second episode very much. He keeps being like, what's going on? You go find out and I'm going to stay here. And then they'd have a whole scene with the Dr. Clyde and Rani come back and he's like, oh, what's going on? I'll stay here and watch this with K9 and you lot go over there. And then they go over there and they have a whole other scene and then at the very end he just runs in and it's like, wow, what's going on? He's really not in this very much.
I thought Luke added quite an interesting other dimension actually, because I liked actually the way that they'd split off Clyde and Rani as the ones who were a little more skeptical about what was going on. Clyde most of all, and there's a bit of dialogue I think between Clyde and Luke where Luke is like, oh, just because your dad turned out bad doesn't mean that mine is. And then he's kind of effectively like, well, he's not your dad. And then Luke's having this worry about, do I need to accept this man as my dad? I've never had a father figure. Is that what other people have to do who are adopted? And I thought that expression was quite funny. And then he sort of runs to his mum's defense when he finds out that the other two have been snooping around, because he doesn't really have a reason to suspect anything's off. So when they're like, right, yeah, we broke into your man's house. And Luke is like, what? You broke into his house. That is absolutely crossing a line. And they're like, no, it's boarded up. It's weird.
They're like, no, we're doing this for you. And it's like, no, that's breaking and entering.
Yeah, I found the Sarah Jane response there funny as well. She's like, no, he's under the influence of this. She goes, no, he's got a flat. They bought him a flat. And I've been there several times. Wry smile.
Yeah.
I stayed over.
Wry smile. It is weird. One of the listeners was saying about how the hypnotism ring could be a little bit dodgy. And it does feel... I mean, Sarah Jane has a history with hypnotism, so I do like that there is some form of that in the Sarah Jane Adventures, but it is a little bit of like a... Because I do think Sarah Jane is cleverer than this plot allows if you don't add another element to it. Like, I feel like she's too much of an investigative journalist that she wouldn't just give in to love like this. If she was told by Clyde, oh, by the way, we broke into his flat and it was completely empty and no one's clearly lived there for years, she might be like, that's interesting. Why have I never gone to this? So I do feel like you need that element.
It needed it.
But it does feel like it kind of, not necessarily cheapens it, but it's a bit like, you know how they said they made the psychic paper was just like a quick get around of like, well, this is the solution. It felt a little bit like that to me.
Yes, they needed a way to... I mean, it says a lot about how good Sarah Jane's character is, that they need a plot device to make her a bit more stupid, basically, in this. They're like, we need to no,
it's true.
Make her ignore the obvious here. And I'm glad they didn't just make her emotional and blinded by love. And no, he couldn't be. I love Richard / Peter / Dave / whatever his name is. And I'm
Nigel.
glad that, and I think she got a bit of room in episode 2 because the Doctor's back. The Doctor's presence in the story is therefore massive, and David Tennant can't kind of help but become the focal point of episode 2 because he's just, it's the cameo. The Doctor is here. But in splitting her off from him, from some of it, they at least allow her to work out things like it's a time loop by herself. The ring is dodgy by herself. Confront the Trickster and explain that to Peter by herself. Without the Doctor needing to kind of take the words out of her mouth, they can solve it separately but in parallel.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that you had to have some way of separating the Doctor and Sarah Jane because it, like, through no fault of David Tennant or Elizabeth Sladen's, I think it would be difficult for the Doctor to turn up. And I actually was looking earlier and I found the articles where they announced that David Tennant was going to be coming back. So I've got this article from The Guardian, which I've got a big thing on the front of it. It says, this article is more than 15 years old. And I'm like, oh my God, stop it. Don't tell me again. Stop reminding me. It's from Tuesday, the 26th of May, 2009. And it's so funny because it's Russell T Davies talking about his upcoming plans for Doctor Who. And I'm just like, that's now. But he says, viewers who thought they might have to wait until November for the next full episode of Doctor Who, this is a very extra special treat. It's not just a cameo from David, it's a full-on appearance as he and Sarah Jane face their biggest threat ever. I also feel like he just says that all the time. Like, it's the biggest threat ever. It's the biggest threat ever.
They love to say, it's not just a cameo, it's full on. The same they said for George Mead last year when he was on Skaro. Like, it's not just a skit, it's not just funny.
It's full on. But yeah, no, I think that splitting them up was definitely the right way to do it. But even though the Doctor is definitely the lead character in that little pocket of time, because we keep going back to the anchor of Sarah Jane, we're reminded that this is her show, and the majority of what they're talking about in The Other World with the Doctor is what's happening with Sarah Jane. How are we going to find Sarah Jane? We need to get back to Sarah Jane. And it does really toe that line well between having arguably a bigger character in the episode than the lead, and it still feeling like it's Sarah Jane's adventures.
He doesn't swallow up the whole story. It's still ultimately Sarah's choice at the end. Sarah has to be the one to lead poor Peter to his death. I also had a note to say that I feel like Peter's death was stupid. Him being like, I was working at home one day, and then he just falls down the stairs in a forward roll. And he
even says it. He's like, it was some stupid accident. I'm like, yeah,
it was a really stupid accident, my friend. Like, you were wearing a full suit to work from home, which is humiliating. So when they found you, it was like, my brother, it was a Tuesday. You were in your own house in a full suit, and you just forward rolled down the stairs reading a letter.
No reason.
Yeah,
literally for no reason. It's so funny that this is what work from home looked like in 2009, is people wearing suits and walking through their house in London. Also, I don't think he had any lights on as well. I know it was like a shadowy flashback, but I feel like they filmed it on the same day they filmed the like shadowy breaking into his house scene, and there was just no lights on. I'm like, well, maybe that's why he slipped down the stairs.
I will say, David Tennant's big presence, I mean, I got a real thrill from it. I'm playing it down and be like, oh, David Tennant's in this. I got a massive thrill from, stop the wedding, and getting to see
Sarah Jane's like, Doctor,
and also getting to see the Doctor go face to face with the Trickster, whose time
finally,
not that long ago almost brought his story to an abrupt end. I was imagining that moment earlier. I don't remember why I was thinking about it.
You do really hit all of the 10th Doctorisms. There's the bit when he's talking to Peter at the end. He's like, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Like, you get a good old, I'm so sorry.
Good old, I'm so sorry.
And I love, oh my God, one of my favourite lines is when he's like, she's here, Sarah. And then Ronnie's like, oh, Sarah Jane. She doesn't like being called Sarah. And he just stands there and goes, she does when I do it.
She does by me. I love that. It's
me.
real like, well, we've got something special, so don't worry about it. Also, I love the
Coming
line, I assume everyone knows what the TARDIS is, unless you've really not been paying attention. Come on.
That I feel like was even a line to the audience.
That was to the audience. Like, we don't need to explain this, right? You know this. Good.
Yeah.
Onwards.
We're not going over this again.
I love that. That's a fourth wall break I can do. I like that. A little nod to
that
the
was
audience.
That was a soft fourth wall break. That was in the Sarah Jane Adventures, we don't need to explain what the TARDIS is because we're all aware that we're watching Doctor Who. You know, we're not going to go
of course.
I love just coming off the back of the Doctor Sarah and Sarah Jane. I just love Geeta Chandra.
Yes.
So much.
Great fun.
I want to watch the supercut of Geeta Chandra. Like the moments in this, every time she's like, well, Harish, my darling. Hello, my darling. And like when she runs up to Sarah Jane and Peter, I nearly started calling him Richard too, and it's not his name.
It's not his name.
And she's like, I've got my flower. I'm a florist. Blooming lovely. We do excellent wedding flowers. And like, there's one bit when she's looking around all the guests. She's like, that's so-and-so. That's the editor. So-and-so does her hair. Oh, that's so-and-so. I can't remember their name. And I'm like, why is this dialogue?
But what's good about that is
funny.
then the good old folks at TARDIS Wiki have gone through and in the like world building section, they've named then like so-and-so is the name of Sarah Jane's hairdresser. So-and-so is the name of Sarah Jane's florist.
You know they will. You know.
They've added that to like the official canon.
I don't know who is listening that can do this, but how do we get TARDIS Wiki page? Because I feel like we're getting on towards 100 episodes of Wholala.
Yeah.
And I feel like we deserve to be there, and I would do it myself, but I don't know how.
At least add Galley Cab.
Yeah, you have to add Galley Cab. If anyone here is listening and has the power of updating TARDIS Wiki, please put Galley Cab on there, and please put Wholala Pod on there, because do you know what? In October, it'll be our 2-year anniversary.
Oh, I'm looking now for Galley Cab, and there's an article about Doctor Who magazine issue 607, which you'll know, Sam, featured a 2-pager on Galley Cab, which is extra exciting because they talk to Katie Manning in it as well about her experience, which is just so cool. And I love that the section is called Space Babes.
Oh, that's such a good title for it. That was such a good Galley Cab. I feel I'm getting real Galley Cab withdrawals where I think the next one's Halloween.
Yeah, it's October, I think.
Again, it'll be around the 2-year anniversary of Wholala, but yeah, I'm already planning. But we do have the proms in between now and then, so we do have a docu.
We do. We've got the proms on Monday. K9 hates that computer. Absolutely hates it. K9's really funny. I like to all that Luke will like try and vent and be like, oh, K9, like, how do I treat this man? Is he really my father? Will I ever have to accept him as my dad? And K9's like, babe, I have no idea. Like, you should ask a human.
Regret, I do not have the function.
I do not have the function for that. Sorry, master, you should ask another human. Everyone's bewildered as well that this bloke has vanished at the aisle at the very end when Peter's gone back to the land of the dead, and they're like, that all really happened, didn't it? And K9 kind of slightly rolls out from under the table and goes, affirmative, and then rolls back in.
Affirmative. And there's a moment when I think K9's off screen. Oh yeah, that's it. It's when the little slug monster's there, and K9 wakes up and it's like, alert, alien detected, and it drives sort of off screen and it goes, initiating stare mode. And like, I just love the idea that I don't know that we've ever seen K9 fly in this canon. I know he did in the spin-off show, but just that whenever he goes up and down Sarah Jane's stairs, it's just like,
oh, he's handling the stairs. We'll never know how.
So last week, if anyone didn't listen to our Temptation of Sarah Jane episode, we were talking about Mr. Smith, and it led us down a little rabbit hole of ChatGPT and talking to it different Sarah Jane characters.
Yes.
And you guys loved it. And I thought a funny thing to do, because I didn't really think about this at the time, is when you talk to ChatGPT to speak to like a character, it gives you prompts, a bit like in a video game, of like what you can say to the character. So I've put into ChatGPT, talk to me like the Trickster from the Sarah Jane Adventures.
Right.
And I'm amazed. I'm hardly here to publicize AI and say it's the most incredible thing in the world, but I am amazed with how little you can put into it, what it knows.
Yeah.
Do you want to hear how it responds?
Go on.
Ah, the mortal dares to summon me, the trickster. How deliciously bold of you. I thrive on chaos and disruption, bending reality to my will and feeding on the resulting turmoil. What is it, I wonder, that you seek from me? A favour, perhaps? Or are you simply curious about the depths of chaos I can unleash? But remember, mortal, every choice has a consequence. The fabric of time is fragile, and a single thread pulled by my hand could unravel the very existence you cling to.
Wow.
So ask wisely if you dare.
I love how ChatGPT just popped up one day and just was available, like pretty much for free.
This is free.
It's wild, isn't it? It is actually wild. Like, I don't know what data they'll have trained it on as well to give it trickster knowledge. Like, is that based on transcripts? Is that based on, like, where did they get that from? Back to the actual story for a moment.
Back to the story, yes.
Back to the episode. The character of the Doctor is interesting here. We're meeting the 10th Doctor right before he goes kind of full God complex, and right before the Waters of Mars, when he really is kind of, the laws of time will obey me, and, you know, that kind of guy.
Yeah.
But the Doctor broadly in this, I mean, parallel still with how the 15th Doctor acts in Empire of Death. He's terrible at just staying in one place and allowing meaningful family connections to develop. He has little flashes of these like tender moments, like when he kind of gets down to look after Luke when Luke's unconscious. He's like, Luke Smith, and he almost looks like a little bit of a father figure to him. And with all the other kids, he's like, oh, these are my friends. These aren't kids, they're my friends. And any friend of Sarah Jane is a friend of mine. And he has that warmth, but then at the very end, it's like there's no reason for the Doctor to hurry off and leave. But of course, he always insists on doing that. He can't just stay in one place. He just has to kind of, you know, Sarah's like, is this it? Is this the last time? And he's like, oh, I don't know. I hope not. He's so whimsical about it, even though it's always like 5, 10, 20, 40 years for Sarah Jane every time. 40's a bit far.
Yeah.
It was never 40 years, but
no, I mean, I think, you know, he left her in the 80s and came back in, you know, the mid 2000s. So it was a good 30 years. But no, you're so right. I like that, especially with David Tennant's Doctor, I like that the 14th Doctor had Donna to really confront that and be like, he's like, oh, I can't, you know, I can't just like come back and visit people. And she's like, well, why couldn't you?
Yeah.
Like, why couldn't you?
Why is that so awful?
It's the same with Sarah Jane. Like, we know as a viewer, like, you know, David Tennant's story is ending, and that's why that, like, it's more of a dialogue to the audience saying this is probably the last time you'll see Sarah Jane, certainly with this Doctor. But in story, I don't really understand why Sarah Jane would have that foreboding sense of, is this the last time I'm going to see you? Like, why does the Doctor have to be so definitive with things? And what's quite sweet is that this isn't even the last time that she sees this Doctor. In The End of Time Part 2, when he does his little farewell tour, he not only sees Sarah Jane again, but he also sees Luke again and saves Luke life.
Yeah.
Luke is like walking out in the middle of the road and stops him from walking into traffic. And then in the very next season of Sarah Jane Adventures, the Doctor's back again. But this time it's Matt Smith in a bow tie.
And it's nice that then Matt Smith's Doctor does that bit about, last time I was dying, I looked back on all of you, every single one, and I was so proud. And it's nice, but it's funny, like, I guess in the context as well of having that school reunion episode where he talks to Rose about the fact that all of his companions are mortal, and through their lives, he has to see them kind of wither and die, in his words, which is lovely language. It reveals a lot about his perspective, that he loves these short bursts where he gets very attached to them, and then he remembers that they're not going to stay the way they are, like he is, and they don't have infinite lives like he does. And then when it has to come to an end, he's always devastated. But it's a shame, I guess, when there's a character like Sarah Jane who is relatively safe on Earth with a family in one spot, fighting aliens, he doesn't tend to come and check in. I guess in this case he does. He knew something was wrong and he came back, but...
Yeah, they never really explain why he came back in this one, other than, I like the explanation of just like, he knew that she needed him. He knew that this was a time when Sarah Jane needed the Doctor and he came back for her. And I think so rarely in Doctor Who, certainly in this period, the Doctor doesn't really come back for people. Once he's left, he's left. And I think maybe it's off the back of The Stolen Earth, where she has that line to him where she says, you act like such a lonely man, but look at you, you've got the biggest family on Earth. I think that this is a time where he was a bit like, not to read it too much, but he might have been a bit like, oh, my family needs me. Like, I'm needed somewhere. And then like the TARDIS mobile goes. And I feel like do you know what, though, as well? Elizabeth Sladen and David Tennant's chemistry is just incredible. They have such a great rapport with each other. I think part of it is because David has such a respect for Elizabeth Sladen and the work she's done, because he grew up with the Doctor and Sarah. And I feel like when Matt Smith comes in the next series, I don't get that feeling again. I'm excited to at some point. We won't do it next week, but I'm excited to at some point watch that episode again. But Sarah Jane's like, wait a minute, it's you, Doctor? And he's like, oh, it's me. And they kind of don't really have that. Like, if anything, he has a bit more chemistry with Joe.
It's not the same.
No, it's not.
It's not the same. The chemistry I think that's really special is with the fourth Doctor, obviously the third Doctor, and with 10. Those really stand out.
Yeah.
There's something
I think so
plausible, I think, in the way that they interact in this one that feels like they really are old friends who've been through it together. It feels real.
I forget, because I'm obviously a new Who viewer before a classic Who viewer, that, you know, I think about School Reunion, I think about Stolen Earth, and I think about Sarah Jane Adventures, but when you think about Sarah Jane having that conversation with TARDIS at the end, you think back to her with the Sontaran and the third Doctor, her and the Pyramids of Mars and the fourth Doctor, and her with the Hand of Fear and all those adventures. And she's looking at this man and she says, because she never really got a goodbye before. She, like, even when in School Reunion, she was like, oh, this time, like, just, you know, say goodbye, but thank you, whatever. Like, she never really got a goodbye. And in this one, she sort of has that real moment of, is this the last time I'm ever going to see you? And his answer is, I don't know. When you think about with that weight and that score and her kind of brushing off going, okay, well, until the next time, it's a very, very sweet moment, I think.
It's interesting in the TARDIS as well, like with the kids, they're all excited and they're looking around, but they're like, what does this do? And she's like, don't touch. And she's got such a respect for the Doctor and for the TARDIS that she's like, don't muck around, like, you know, don't touch that. And they're like, oh, can we see the moon? Can we just go back in time? And she's like, no, you're grounded. The Jadoon said so. Get off. Back you go. And it's that kind of like, it separates that you may be friends of the Doctor, but you're not what we are. You don't have the love that we have.
That's exactly it. They have a respect for the Doctor, and they find him cool. Like, that's kind of that, you know, they've heard all these stories about the Doctor and how cool he is, whereas the Doctor isn't. They know the Doctor the myth. I think that's what it is. They know the Doctor the myth, and she knows the Doctor her friend. Yeah. And I'm really glad that they got that moment at the end. And you kind of get a sort of emblematic scene of that. Of course, it doesn't have the same emotional weight when the 11th Doctor and then Sarah Jane and Joe are on the TARDIS in the next one. And they're asking, you know, well, we thought if we had this funny theory that if the Doctor were to ever die, we'd probably know. And the 11th Doctor says, like, I think the whole world might shiver. It doesn't really have the same weight, but I do like that we still get those moments in the TARDIS specifically.
My favourite standout when Joe comes in is that, like, oh, it always smells the same. That's always like the line that stands out for me, because that just really feels true of how I bet everyone feels when they get into the TARDIS. It's just like, TARDIS.
I know. I love thinking about like the power of the Doctor and like Ace when she jumps through the TARDIS into Jodie's TARDIS and she comes on, and it couldn't be more different of a space than the 7th Doctor's TARDIS, but she comes on, she's like, TARDIS.
Yeah. But I feel like, when you go back to, visit your parents or something and, the house smells a certain way and you're like, yeah, that's the house smell. That's home.
Yeah. It must be so strange as a companion to go back to a TARDIS that isn't for you. Like, I know we've already watched... Have we watched School Reunion on Wholala?
Nope.
We must have.
Nope.
Have we?
No.
Have we not?
Nope.
Oh my...
That could round us off.
Do you know why I thought that? It's because I had it noted in like Wholala Series 2. I had that noted as like an upcoming episode, and then something happened where we didn't do it. Oh, we have to do School Reunion. We already had a plan for next week, but should we do School Reunion instead?
Listen, I'm not mad about it.
Okay, at the end of the episode, you got to listen to the very end. We're nearly there. I will tell you what we have planned for next week, and then I'll tell you that maybe we'll do School Reunion instead, and you have to tell us what you want.
Yeah, let us know.
Well, Alasdair, off the back of the Trickster trilogy, I have a fun little game for you.
Oh, please tell me about it.
I have a little game called Camp or
Oh,
Down.
God!
Now, for anyone who hasn't listened to Wholala, we love to play a little game called Camp or Damp, where we look back on moments in the episode we've just watched and talk about whether they were camp or whether they were damp. Alasdair, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Any scene that Geeta Chandra is in, camp or damp?
Geeta Chandra is phenomenal. I particularly like, Peter and Geeta. That's funny.
She's just so good. I love... It's not even this episode. I think it's Prisoner of the Jadoo in the beginning of the season, where she breaks into this office building because she thinks it will look nicer with flowers. So she just breaks in, and Peter's like, "This is breaking in." She's like, "Oh, Peter, don't be such a pussy boots." It's so funny.
You do a great impression. You do a good Geeta.
The Doctor's rattle, camp or damp?
The Doctor's rattle. Oh, his rattle. It was all right. It could have been. It was quite good. I think there's camper items to have withdrawn, but it was campish.
I like it from the episode. Like, I like that it's like a subtle nod to, like, he knows he's surrounded by children, and it's a bit like how I can imagine maybe the 12th Doctor would genuinely believe that this would entertain them. Like,
yes.
Like, ooh, look at the bloody rattle, look at this.
Oh, spin that around. Look at that. Don't look at me.
Spin that
Look
around.
at that. Yeah.
Look at that. Clara.
Where's Clara Oswald?
And finally, the return of the Tricksters. Oh, camp or damp.
I love the Tricksters' repeated defeats. So funny, so humiliating, constant miscalculations, weakest of the Pantheon by a mile, constantly being humiliated, very funny, very camp, silly, silly man.
Very funny, very camp. Silly man. Well, do you have any fun facts? I haven't got any fun facts this week.
You know what, Sam? I did prepare a little fun fact for you. Now,
how lovely.
I thought how very convenient when they got to the wedding scene. They were like, the Brigadier's in Peru and Maria can't come. She's doing her exams. Well, the Maria thing probably is.
Oh, and he's holding a letter. I love that. He's as if he's just printed out this letter. It's like, it's a message from Maria. I'm like, why did you
I got the message from Maria and I printed the email for some reason. It's the best way to communicate this to everyone else.
Smartphones existed in 2009.
Oh, barely. They were spinning it. If he whipped out his BlackBerry, that'd have been good. Yasmin Page left the show, I think, to go back to school and do her exams. Very sensible. And so saying Maria's gone to do her exams wasn't untrue. There were rumours that they would have Nicholas Courtney in the show as the Brigadier, but that he became ill, which prevented him from participating, and it turned out both were true. They reported in Doctor Who magazine, in the coverage of Nicholas Courtney's death, that he had suffered a stroke and was recovering at the time. David Tennant also confirmed that Courtney was supposed to appear. Gareth Roberts also acknowledged Courtney in the dedication of the novelisation as being someone who was supposed to appear in the episode. So the Brigadier was intended to be a part of the episode and presumably would have been kind of, I guess, cut off with the other guests and still wouldn't have been like a major part of solving it. But it would have been nice if we would have got a chance, I guess, for the Doctor to meet the Brigadier again on screen.
Yeah, they are quite good with doing those little nods. I think it would have made sense because at this point the Brigadier had just been in the Sarah Jane Adventures and had also just had a reference in Doctor Who as well, in the Sontaran Set and Poison Sky. So I feel like they did, in the same way that you needed an explanation as to why Maria couldn't be there and why Clyde's mum couldn't be there, you did need like a little throwaway line about it. I do like that you get that in the Sarah Jane Adventures. Again, in the next one with the Doctor, she kind of lists off all these companions and like whispers and rumours as to where she's heard they might be. And I do like that you get that in the show. Nice,
consistent world building is what we love. And I think as well, like their absence would be noted, right? Like the Brigadier is her oldest friend. Of course, he would have come to her wedding. He would have cancelled everything if he could.
Well, thank you so much for listening to this episode of Wholala. Let us know, what did you think of the wedding of Sarah Jane?
What did you think? Let us know. Tags in tweets. Send us your horrible opinions and your bad takes.
Exactly. Now, as I mentioned, next week, I had a plan. So we were saying it could be nice to round out this sort of Sarah Jane little trilogy that we've been doing by doing School Reunion, the first episode that Sarah Jane returned to Doctor Who in. This sounds so stupid. Like, that's such a poetic way to end this like little series of episodes we've been doing. Do you want to know what, like, this is to the listener, what me and Asa had agreed that we would do next week before we kind of had this idea? This is going to sound so stupid. I want to do the Crimson Horror.
Yeah. I mean, the Crimson Horror, you suggested it, and I was like, and the fact I was like, was probably exactly why it would be good to do. We should do it still. My memory of it is appalling, and people are ready to say how great it is, but we can save it for a week when I'm in a real hater mood, and then we can dive in.
I'm just so in the mood for it. We did an episode, I think it was in series 3 of Wholala, where we were saying about underrated classics, and I was saying that I think that The Crimson Horror is an underrated episode because it's so often like crapped on when it's actually not that bad of an episode.
Wrong.
I do, from memory, think that Clara has little to no screen time, but I am excited to see. I haven't watched it in ages, so either we'll do a poll or something, but please tweet us. Do you want us to talk about School Reunion or The Crimson Horror next week?
It's all over the shop, girls. We'll probably do both at some point. Keep that in mind. So which one do you want first?
Yeah, exactly.
How greedy
Which
are you
one
feeling?
do you want first?
Yeah.
Well, you can let us know on all of our social media, which is at HulaPod everywhere. It's X, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Threads. We're also on YouTube, where you can reach old episodes of the podcast everywhere at HulaPod. And you can also send us your voice notes or your stories from the Doctor Who universe at hulalapod@gmail.com. Please let us know.
Yes, please do. We really want to hear your stories. And you can rate us 5 stars if you enjoyed the episode. You can follow us wherever you listen to your pods so that you get notified when new episodes drop every single Thursday for how many weeks in a row now? 92 weeks.
Oh, mama. Not including the bonus episodes.
Yeah, not including the bonus episodes. Woof. You can support our coffee, buy us a coffee, ko-fi coffee, and you can share the pod with someone who you think would enjoy it.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much for listening. We will see you next week where we either be rewatching School Reunion or The Crimson Horror.
We'll see you then.
Bye!
Bye.